Hello, I'm Arcturus and welcome back to another episode of Wars Going On the Forerunner server. With me is Sebastian Keynes, and as always, this is a community-based podcast where we talk about what's going on in Watcher of Realms. If you want to get involved in the conversation, you can always leave us a comment down below. And remember that you join us on the Discord, the Dragon Slayers Discord, in the Wars Going On thread, and you can offer a suggestion about what we talk about this week.
Yeah, hello again, everybody. Welcome back, and do please remember to hit like and subscribe so you can stay on top of when we release future episodes. There was a major update here on the Forerunner server. Now, before we get the comments, say why are you guys getting updates and we're not getting him in global, is because, at least to my knowledge, Forerunner server cannot be accessed through iOS. So you have to do it through Android and then use an emulator or use an Android device. So that's why I think things roll out here, and then we can start toying around with them. But the first thing that we noticed from the patch notes is that we were aware that we were in the last week of Season 4 of GVG. So we were waiting for the announcement as to what would happen in terms of Season 5. So let's start with the three, I guess, the minor three things regarding GVG here, Arcturus, and then we'll focus on the next, which is, one, they're going to be adding 6 season exclusive borders. It looked like an emote, a chat emote.
Yeah.
And they're going to give us a grid skin, right?
Yeah.
But then the major thing on top of that, to get more exclusive rewards, is that now we're going to have a gladiator gauntlet tournament where the top 32 guilds from Season 4 are going to participate in a single elimination tournament.
You see, I actually read it as the end of Season 5, so I don't think it's going to be straight out of the back of Season 4. It's going to be how you rank in Season 5, which is going to kick off this tournament. Now, that might actually mean that the top 32 players don't get downtime between Season 5 and Season 6, which might be quite tiring for players, because I know there's a lot of energy involved in staying in the high ranks, because you've got to plan your attacks, you've got to get them in, and you've got to consistently perform. Now, if the impact of that has, at least this seems to suggest it's a knockout tournament as well. So either they'll extend the gaps between the seasons, so you can have this tournament, and then maybe people who aren't in that can like spectate, and they can go into the tournament, which would be quite a nice feature actually. So devs, if you're watching, spectator view for those who aren't participating in the knockout tournament, that'd be fun.
You are right, though. It's at the end of Season 5. I did read that wrong. So it's at the end of Season 5, the top 32 competing in the single. The one thing, though, that I hope that they have the matchmaking system set up correctly. So it'd be 1 against 32, 2 against 31, etc., etc. Because the last thing you want is that the final be top guild or number 1 seed versus 16 seed or something like that.
It's how they plan it, they play that out. We'll have to see how they do this,
and they're going to have to figure out a way to lock things out a little bit. So if, for example, you're in guild 28 and you get eliminated, that then you don't go and jump into guild 3 to try to still get whatever rewards are at the end. Hopefully once everything starts, it gets locked down, so then there's no guild switching to try to benefit from it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be the way it's going to play, because if you're already locked in, once you're in the seat, you're engaged in the guild war session, you can't then leave until the end of that week's tournament. So they just basically extend that out for the duration of the thing, and then it's easy for them to say that that's it, you're done for that time. So
I would imagine this lasts maybe 2 weeks. So anybody that is not in it gets 2 weeks off or something like that. We'll see. It'd be really, to put it all together, to go, how many matches would that?
Well, it's only going to be one match each. So you're looking at currently 2 matches a week. So that'd get you down to.
So that would go from 32, 16
to
16 to 8.
Yeah. So it sounds like 3 weeks almost. But it's still quite a long gap. But I have to see how it overlays with standard Guild. It's not clear from the patch notes how they're going to play that how that's going to look into Season 6. But yeah, we'll see.
And then there's going to be a new Demon Soldier, an epic Demon Soldier. Of course, as they keep introducing new Demon Soldiers as the season roll out. I went and looked in the test server to see if he was there because I wanted to get an idea of what his kit might be, but it wasn't there yet.
Well, Garnet Guards. Garnet Guards are the speedrunners who are in the map, this Gear Raid 2. They're the guys who run into your tanks and flatten them. So anyone who...
those are it. Okay.
So they're going to be the ones, I think. Let's just jump over to that and see to confirm.
Go ahead, because this is good. You're the one writing a lot of this stuff, so you are familiar with the names of a lot of these Demon Soldiers. So I was trying to figure out which one it was, or if it was a new one. So this...
Golden Guards. Maybe it's one of the primitive golden...
Something like that one?
Garnet Guards. Manipulates rocks. This is the one who comes on and throws a rock from a distance and takes out the healers on the platforms with a splash attack. So it sounds like a bit like an epic version of the Bookkeeper.
Interesting. Okay.
I would have gone for the runner.
We'll see.
I still would have thought the runner who takes out like a big chunk of health of someone would have been more interesting. Okay, their choice.
Yeah, like it's slams against the tank. I thought it was going to be something that slams against the tank, but I guess based on what you just showed me, that does not seem to be the Garnet Guard.
Garnet Guard. That's
we'll
what
find
it says.
out when he. Yeah. We'll find out in next week's patch to see what exactly comes out of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the more interesting thing though is that they changed the design, but not that. They changed the cosmetic of it, but the new tower map for S5 has been leaked out, and they have told us that the Season 4 tower map is now going to be the central keep in Season 5.
Yeah, so this has been circulating from the Leaker crew on Destin server. They're a good group of guys, always willing to share what they can find in the game files. And this is what they have put out for the new, for the map. So this is what they're showing at the moment.
So all I'm going to say is that I know for sure there are 2 errors in this picture. That's it. I'll let people figure out what those errors are.
Yeah. So we'll see what comes out.
So it looks like there is a platform on the top right of the picture. That'd be an interesting place to start if you wanted to just make sure that you get them at spawn point, or you wait until they come crawling closer to the endpoint. So
yeah, I think this is going to be the kind of if you're going for the sort of like the Dahlia, Ingrid long range attack, I think this is the sort of tile you'd be aiming for, but that's going to be vulnerable to anything coming in with any range on it. So maybe this new Garnet Guard has got a particularly long range attack, so that will be the counter to those sorts of units. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
A lot of practice next week. Try to figure this thing out. Exactly. We just got the guild to hit Overlord this season, and now here's a new map, so we have to reteach them again.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it for the patch notes on the Guild v Guild. I've not seen anything. I think I have seen a leak of the Greed skill. I think it's a bit like the Abomination skill in a sort of a ghastly green color, but we'll see when it actually comes out. Right,
let's move on to the next one, the new content. The one that is actually driving a little bit of excitement within the community, and that's AMR. We have new stages, 19 to 22. I guess I'll let you go ahead and run it down because at the same time, there's a new currency in the game, and it has to do with meteorites and what we can get out of them.
Yeah, so there's now, as Sebastian said, there's 2 different types of stages. There's 19 and 21 drop the Titan meteorites, and 20 and 22 drop the Wisdom meteorites. And what that means is that you've got the the Titan, which are the ground, is especially for ground-based units, and you've got Wisdom, which is for anything that's on a platform. So that's all your archers, your mages, your healers that are on platforms. They're going to get your artifacts in there. You're going to get your ground units, so your tanks and defenders and your fighters. So your fighters and your defenders are going to be from your Titans. So yeah, it's an interesting split. What is nice is that they're expanding the opportunity to get exclusives, but it's a small chance. It's 2%.
2%. So yeah, so you can hopefully get 2 out of 100 forges, but I think people are going to keep a close eye on it, and we'll see if it holds up to 2 out of 100. But yeah,
generally has been pretty positive so far. I think most people are finding that they're getting 1. I don't know whether they've like put an early pity threshold on them just so that people feel like it's good, but so far it's going to be interesting. I don't know if you saw Fasty's stream yesterday, or if you've seen any of Sebastian's videos on this, but this is not set up for it. This is not a speed run stage. So if you're going for the Oracle challenge for the artifacts, you will be still farming 18. Just because you need the speed on that. You can get more meteorite from these stages, but they're much longer to take out, and it's not like 19 seconds and done. It's a good 2 minutes of hard combat.
Yeah, they made sure they definitely made sure that you could not do 10-second runs on this. So you're gonna have to eventually. I think we're gonna figure out a way to kind of speed run it, but it won't be the speed runs that we know from stage 18.
Yeah.
Okay, but the wrinkle here, I don't know if you want to go over to the map AMR, but 19 to 21 is the standard compositions that we were accustomed to, right? Which were fighters, defenders, if we wanted to. Yeah. And we had one platform, and that was reserved for a healer, typically. In this case, it's going to be the same. But they threw a wrinkle on 20 and 22, and that is where they took away a lot of the ground platform or ground spaces available, and they added all these platform ones.
Yeah.
So when I went and looked at the suggested heroes, I was like, okay, Dahlia and Ingrid are going to have a spot.
Yeah. I think there's very much, you can see here, so on screen I've got 20 and there's 21, so you can see the difference immediately. There's a lot more platform tiles available on 20 than there are for 21. And I think so 21 and 19 are very much the traditional fighter blitz strategies. There is a lot of incoming damage. The enemies have a lot more resistance, so they're immune to CC effects. So you can't stun them, you can't push them back. Right. It's very much you're not going to blitz this. They've made it as like, okay, you want more rewards, you're going to have to work for it. But yeah, it's fine. It's fine. They've added some nice features to it. But it's a pretty tough stage. Even once you've beaten it, it's not going to be. I did
the bus's AOE damage. I was going to say the bus's AOE damage is not a joke. You're going to have to prepare for it. Make sure you're a little bit tanky to hold it. And then if he does approach you at the end, you got to take him down quickly, because if he does one slam, you'll be surprised how many units he's going to take out. The other thing, too, that I got away with in 19 and 20 was ignoring the top units, the ones that were coming from the top right hand of the map, which if they do reach the boss, he will gain attack. So if you want to try to make sure that you leave a spare unit or two, or just a spare unit to counter those, it may actually help you in terms of bringing down the boss. He won't slam too hard, but damn, In 21 and 22, when he does those slams, they're no joke.
Yeah, I did try on 22 dropping a marksman on this tile here, just above him, and aiming down to see if I could pick him off early, and that didn't work. The marksman just refused to attack until he started moving. So in one of the strategies that I'm hoping to publish here soon, is that I was using Micah on the top, at least for the platform one, and I was giving her the chalice so she could gain some health after the slams. But I'm still working on the precise HP, and then have the precise damage to bring those down, because the boss will eventually wear her out, and then if those units are not coming out, she cannot regain health. Yep. But that's one strategy that I'm working on. But you can certainly do that, especially with the chalice, because you can regain a little bit of HP with it. Yeah, speaking of Micah, there was a bug on her that came in last week's patch. It's now been fixed. She just stopped attacking after any of the Infernal Lords used their ultimate. But anyway, that's been fixed. So well done to the devs for that one, for turning it around as soon as I gave them the evidence. But yeah, it's good to have her back and working again.
Well, it's a good thing that you spotted it as well, and then you kind of gave me a heads up on it, and I finally summoned a good Infernal unit to help me push the last 3 stages of faction trials here in Forerunners. And when I got to 12, I could have used her, but if I used one ultimate from Pyros or Sulka, she would just get locked up, and then she wouldn't do anything. So we'll try it the next time around, but it was a good catch. It's kind of like the Valk one that we found a while ago, so they patched that up pretty quickly. It's easy to do, I think, in Forerunners to patch things like this. So
yeah,
but I was going to tell, just to kind of summarize here, is that make sure that you have bastion rings on your tanks for the 2 ground stages, and for the platform stations, a lot of AoE helps. So if you have your Viernas, your Dahlias, your Ingrids, your Kamets, Boreas, oh no, not Boreas. Bring those heroes in. And I'm glad I went for Dahlia. I had a sneaking suspicion they were going to release something that was going to where she was going to excel at.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, she's pretty effective, and certainly the strategy I've got for 22 involves using Dahlia, just because that poison and its a brilliant ability to slow everything down, and the explosions just make it really effective at controlling those units coming in. So definitely a good unit to make you to use in this stage.
Now, in terms of the Mythic, you did say about the exclusives is 2%. Mythics, it goes from 20 to 28, and then the rest is legendaries. So 70% shot.
The 70% is a bit of a kick in the teeth. It would have been better if it was they'd adjusted it. I think you were saying that you would have preferred it would be like drop that to 65% or 68% and kept the Mythic at 30, because that would have felt like if you just look at the standard Mythic, it's only 20%, so it's not a massive increase. So it would have been nice if they'd like boosted the Mythic artifact a bit more. Anything just to give us that edge on getting with those Tears of Twilights and those Wailing Skulls, or even those new keys or whatever. There's lots of interesting artifacts that are quite hard to get. So if you keep the percentages small, then the chance of pulling them just makes it even more frustrating for people.
Yeah, and you know, when you're forging and you spend whatever stamina you have, especially if you're a low spender, the last thing you're going to want to see is a 10 yellow. And I'm just waiting for those first screens that should show up, man. But I don't know. I mean, 28 seems like a odd number, but it seems to be something that they have to calculate on their end and say how much of the stamina would be worth to get you a Mythic. So we'll see. Yeah. I don't expect them to adjust this, but we'll see what happens in the long run.
I managed to get one exclusive out of 800 shots. On Wisdom. So it's not terrible, but it's not amazing. But I think it's going to be something to track over time. But then again, we're also getting more opportunities to get the the gleaming meteorites from Titanic Ruins. We're getting up to 300 a week from the Void Rift. So they have given us more sources and more chances to get exclusives, which is something they've been promising for a while. An extra 2% chance. Would I have liked it to be higher? Yes. Can I take it with a bitter pill? But yeah, it's better than nothing.
Okay, so before we go to the primary topic of today's podcast, which is actually going to have to do with artifacts, there were just a couple of more minor updates that they did. Did you figure out this the screen shake thing? Did you find that setting?
Yeah, because so it's over here.
I thought it was arenas, but you are saying it's the whole game. Anybody that shakes it.
Yeah, so if on global, I'll see if I can. I'll try and record a clip later. My gear's all over the place at the moment, and like do it as an insert or like link to it as a separate video. Basically, if you're running the ultimate for Setram, then you get like a vibration effect, and it can be a little bit distorting. Whereas this has got you the opportunity to turn that off, and also Gear Raid 2, where you're doing the ground slams, the screen, you get a screen shake effect, and it can, if you're trying to do precise timing and you're getting that wobble, it just makes it really difficult to make sure you get your units down exactly the way you want them to, because there's something going on that's making the game shake. That's unnecessary. So that's what they've done.
Perfect. Yeah, some people might find that annoying, so I completely understand it. And I know that usually sometimes there was also a problem with bright lights or, things that would just flash really quick. So, yeah, those things you have to take into consideration that some players cannot really tolerate. And then the other two that I consider to be good updates, is Nightmare 3, Nightmare 4. They're going to take away the mythic and the legendary extracts, right? Because now we can farm those in Extreme 2 a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah.
And then the other one was that Apex Overlord. They're going to try this out first.
Yeah.
In Forerunners, it won't matter. In Global, it's where it's going to have a bigger impact. They're going to expand Apex from 200 to up to 300 players now can finish in Apex.
Yeah. Now, I think, for global, it's less of an issue. You have more players who are hitting the point threshold, who are really up there now. If they really want Forerunners to be a Forerunning server, what they could do is acknowledge the fact there are fewer players. There's fewer opportunities for combat, because you've got really old Whaley players who've got really, really built accounts, and you've got some players who aren't quite as built but have good combat teams and can get quite high, but then they're running into the A5 Valderons or the A5 whatevers, and they just like can't quite get enough points to hit that full threshold, and they're sitting like me at rank 60 in Arena. So I just can't quite beat some of these A3 Valderons and these Elder combat teams, which I know are really effective because that's what I was running on Global. And yeah, you've got to work around that as best you can. Now, I did manage to sneak into Apex for the first time last week, but unless they kind of normalize it for Forerunners, I don't think it's going to have any impact on us. We're not going to see any change, because last week 77 people, 78 people made Apex on Forerunners. Extending that to 300 is going to do nothing. So
no, and that's why I was that said I don't think it's going to impact Forerunners too much, because not as many people are doing Arena here, let's be honest. And the ones that are doing it have Pradius, and they have Ingrid and all these other cool heroes, right, that you're going to have. So it's going to be on Global. In Global, we're going to see the effect a little bit more of a chance for some people to collect those Apex coins. So Like I said, they're going to need to expand it. 300 is a start, but I think eventually they're going to have to push this a little bit more to maybe 400, 500, depending on how many people are actually playing the mode.
Yeah, I mean, it's still an awful long way off that Apex shop after like 2 weeks in the game and hitting Apex once. It just seems. I know some people are probably a lot higher. There's probably some people are about 6,000 or so, but yeah, it just seems a hell of a long way to go to get that unit at the moment. And as Fasty said last week, that what's the point? What's going to be the benefit of getting this unit by the time you've got that? Because you've already got an absolutely stacked roster. So what's she going to add that's going to be so special?
Okay, so in episode 9, we covered the mages and the fighters artifacts, and we didn't do a tier list per se. We just kind of discussed as to what situations we would use the specific artifacts. So here in this episode, we're going to finish that off. We're going to finish that discussion. So let's start with the defenders this time around, and then we'll move on to the next two as we cover them. But the defender class, I don't know if you want to start with the legendaries or you just want to start with the mythics, but you pretty much have a specific. There's a special use for each one of these artifacts. So, which ones do you want to start with?
Let's think. So we've got Rex's Vow. Now, this one isn't too bad as a legendary because you've got an opportunity for a northern team where lots of shields are being thrown out, and having a 20% damage reduction when you've got a shield up could be quite effective. In the early stages of Gear Raid 2, that can be really good for stopping that incoming damage. In fact, Gear Raid 219, if you've got a strong enough vortex, if you've got this up, then you get Regulus popping his protection bubble, and he has a shield on him, then he's not going to take enough damage from the ground slams to be injured into his 10% health damage. So he'll be able to sustain through the fight. I think it's quite an effective one. It's one of the better legendary defender artifacts because there are some which are a little bit questionable. Another really good one is this one, the North Will. For ages, I didn't think this was a particularly good one, but then someone pointed out that actually, if you put it on someone like Olag or Aveline, who pop their own shields, then actually it becomes really, really effective.
Exactly.
At self-sustain. So yeah, it's it's definitely got one, and especially with the Hellfire Emperor in Immortal Codex, and you've got all that incoming damage and the shields going up and down all the time. Yeah, just that extra health and extra sustain to keep control of the battlefield in that map can be quite useful.
Yeah, so here in Forerunners, when I started the game out, I did take a Rex's Vow to 10, and I left it there until I started getting mythic artifacts just to help me progress through the game. And then besides the shield popping one that restores your health, the other one that I would put on in some of the tanks, especially if I needed a little bit of extra health, was the Watchguard's Unity, but that's all it does. You're just getting extra HP, a little bit, just to make you survive the early mid-game and make sure that you can push AMR a little bit, if that's what you want to kind of, you're pushing that content a little bit. If you're going into campaign, so if you're lucky enough to read Rex's Vow, the North Will, those are good ones to go and start with.
This one is kind of it's a second roll of the dice, the death knell. It's basically saying if you get a low health, then you'll get a chunk of health back just to give you an extra chance of surviving the damage. But the trouble is, if you're receiving that much damage that you're down at below 40% health, then you're probably not in you don't have enough healing support, or having 20% extra health when you're at 40% is less helpful than if you're at 10%. So it's the thresh. It does, for me, the balance doesn't quite work as a safety net, because it just pushes you back up to. It just pushes you back up, but it doesn't push you up high enough when you're low, and the trigger point is too high in other thresholds. Because if there's a lot of damage around, then dropping below 40% is quite a common occurrence. But if you've got a strong healer, then you just pop straight back up. So Ezrin's got absolutely amazing heals as a single target. And you
only get one shot with this, right?
Yeah, you only get one shot.
Time per deployment. Yeah, so it's not like it restores after 10 seconds or anything like that. So yeah, so you're relying on RNG a little bit when it comes to this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're early mid game and you're pushing content and that's the one that you rolled, maybe take it to 5 and didn't use it, and then wait for the other ones. And then once you start pushing for mythics, that's when you start looking for these mythic ones that we're going to cover.
Yeah. This is a bit of an odd one. I can't really. This was a relatively recent addition to the game. This was a Soulbound Rosary, and the idea is it reduces max HP by 20% and increases attack by 10%. Now, there are very few offensive tanks. The main one is the guy who's actually in the background here is Toreador. But, yeah. I wouldn't
sacrifice 20% HP with him, even if he's surviving. He can survive one death hit.
Yeah. So I mean, you'd still want to load a load of HP on him, but it basically says you can load a bit more attack on him, and a bit more attacks, and it will give him a bit more attack speed. I mean, so 30 speed is about a 0.1 interval as far as the game is concerned. So that at the low end of the threshold, that's about the rule of thumb. So it gives you a little bit more attack speed. It's not a massive amount. I've not taken this up any higher because it's sort of like it's a project. I'll do it just to have one in my roster, but I'm not actively building this as an artifact to have.
No, that one is not one I'm gonna suggest for.
No, it's a very, very niche,
very
and
niche,
and it's got to be the right. I mean, it's potentially a Garn, who's I think death scaling anyway, so it's useless, or Toreador, because they're kind of the or Reeve, and they're the offensive tanks. So you've got one limited hero, one ancient hero, and one lord.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm sorry. You might see a little bit of a use for it. I just don't. And by the time you would use this, I just think you should be farming mythics or flawless mirrors by that time.
Yeah, quite likely. It's just a bit of an odd one. And when it came out, I was like, I really can't see a use for it. But yeah, they were like, yeah, have this new defender artifact that's offensive, and it's like, what? Anyway, right. Scrolling up to
Solar Embrace. It says when you're taking damage, defense is increased. Maybe if you're unlucky and get an Azor early, you could use it there, but that's essentially what you're looking for. Is probably a defense scaling hero. And what's the other? The Heart of Thorn is another one. Again,
Heart of
this
Thorn,
one relies on you.
Yeah, that again requires relies you to be taking damage, and you need a lot. Again, a strong healer backing you up, but it's quite a nice idea of retaliation, which is always good for a defender, because they're obviously going to get a lot of incoming damage. I can't find it now. Heart of Thorn, there it is. So an 8% chance of doing it. It doesn't say that it's time limited, so if you max it out, then there's going to be like a 15% chance of reflecting every time you're getting damage. So if you've got a lot of incoming damage, then you'll be able to reflect it back to the to the people who are attacking you and keep you and help whittle them down to do more damage to them. And again, because you can load up as much of your HP onto it, because you're reflecting your HP, you can load up HP onto your defender, and that defense is getting whacked onto the attacker as much as possible.
Now, the only other, let's see here, which one haven't I? The only other one that I have here on that is Nightmare Serpent. This one is acting a little bit like it has a lifesteal mechanism, but again, you gotta be taking damage. So you just gotta make sure you have some type of backup with this one.
Yeah, it's not one I would go for. It's one for me that would just generally go straight in the bin. Most of the Nightmare artifacts, with the exception of Nightmare Samsara, go straight in the bin for me, just because they're not useful enough to use effectively. So
essentially, what I'm saying when it's like, yes, you can use it, here the situation, or here the things to look out for, but in some of this is not where, especially if you're mid, late, mithril is hard to come by. So I would not spend my mithril on this one specifically. There are some legendaries, like the ones that we cover early, where I would say, yes, take it to 10 just to push content. Yeah. But that would be the limit. That would be the extent of it. Don't try to upgrade them, and just save your mithril for when you get those mythic artifacts.
Yeah, I mean, the mythic artifacts for defenders are pretty useful overall, and just to remind everyone, these are the generic artifacts. We're not really looking at the exclusives in this instance. If you wanted to do one talking about the exclusives, do drop us a comment below, or hit us up on Discord, and we can talk about those in a bit more detail. But most of the exclusive artifacts just take a feature of the generic ones, and then they tweak it slightly, or they pick out one element of a kit and try and make it a bit stronger. So back to mythic artifacts.
So for example, just as an example, Trusks is like Goddess Grace and Oleg's
Bastion Ring.
Bastion Ring. Yeah. Bastion Ring hybrid. So that's kind of what they're doing with us.
Yeah, exactly. So the Bastion Ring, you mentioned it, so let's talk about it. This is probably the most effective defender artifact, especially for the Hellfire Emperor. It scales up to a 9% physical and M damage reduction. It increases your block, so it's increasing your survivability, it's increasing the protection for the gates, and it's just giving you more time to hold things up and keep the pressure on the enemy, so that you can keep that damage coming in from your units while your tank is taking this damage. As ever, they're going to have to be backed up by a decent healer, but with 9% damage reduction, it's going to help a lot.
It's the most commonly used one for GVG, just to make sure that you don't have too many critters getting past you. So it has wide applicability. This one is one that's worth investing, getting 2, maybe even 3 into your account. And if you like to push the Immortal Codex, yes, it helps having 6 of them, even if it's on level, just because of that extra block. It gives you that extra time to make sure that the Emperor does not gain any stacks of attack and end the battle for you too quickly. I mean, this is like the SS when it comes to defender artifacts. This is probably the best one. And yeah, do you keep? I mean, I don't sell them. I just keep them because I know I'm going to need them for something, especially now in my global account, I do need 6. So this is not the ones that I sell.
No, I mean, it's definitely one of the best ones out there. I think a lot of people don't like Goddess's Grace, but it can be very useful on the descaling defenders. Especially as you basically end up with basically 30% of 15. Yeah, I do have one max, but yeah, it's about 30% of extra damage overall from your units. So it means that you've got that much more protection, you've got that much more damage output from your death scaling defenders. Again, they'll have to be backed up by a strong healer to take full advantage of it. But again, we don't really have many offensive defenders. Well, I mean, as I said, we've got Toreador, we've got the death scaling defenders, we've got Garn, etc. So there are a few, but there aren't many. And yeah, things like Goddess's Grace work really well in those cases where they're death scaling, because again, it's that protection and offense for them to increase their damage output. And as defense is one of the harder stats to build, this helps get their damage output up because you're starting from a low base and it's hard to build it up to a decent level.
So so early on, maybe in the early days, this artifact may not have been one that is favored by a lot of players, but I think that it has come to have its own use, especially with all these defender-based heroes that are being rolled out into the game. Now, another one, and this is something that we needed for a while, and is the one that gives us a little bit of a rage boost when it comes to defenders, especially when they're being healer. And this is one of the new ones that got introduced to the game. This one, I think, is worth investing your mithril in, and that's the Astral Obelisk.
Yeah, now this is great on Captain Reeve in the Immortal Codex because he's self-healing. It means that he's basically buffing his rage every 5 seconds. He's just like, oh, I'll have 50% extra rage regen. Thank you very much. You just get back to my ultimate even faster. Awesome. The only thing I would like on it would be if that attack value increased maybe even just to 7% at 25 when it's fully leveled. But yeah, that's a wish list thing. It's 5% is fine, but it would be nice if it was a bit higher.
So this one is perfect for Constance as well. It's one, if you don't have her exclusive, right? So now she's gaining rage. She's healing everybody around her. So that's another type of unit that you can use her at. If you, I think that this one is, if you just want to come back to that rage for some reason, you need that ultimate to come back around a little bit quicker. That's what you would put it on. And that would be one situation. And then unless it's an attack-based, defender, then that would be another reason to use it. But that's pretty much its use, is just to boost your rage regeneration.
Yeah, absolutely. It does its job incredibly well. Now,
okay, and then another one that we kind of discussed for somebody like Toreador, and given that he does a little bit of damage, the tuning crystal, is another one that we have that, you could consider investing in one, but this one you need to use in situations where you're going to need a little bit of damage, at least.
Yeah, so this is quite good because it adds a bit of sustain and it heals you as well. So if your defender isn't necessarily getting as much healing as he might be from other sources, or the healer's focus is split and you've only got a single target healer, this can help because he can do a big AoE attack on the when receiving damage. Attacking 10 times, does a big AoE attack and then heals himself. That can be really useful for keeping that defender alive a bit longer. Again, really good in the Conqueror Codex. You can stick it on your front tank and they're putting out their damage, and then they have a big AoE attack, and then it gets a bit more healing, helps keep them alive a bit longer and keeps the units protected. So Cerberus is really well used, but he's a bit squishy, so you have a defender in front of him keeping up this, armed up with a fully maxed out tuning crystal, and you can keep going and keep him alive as long as possible and causing as much havoc as possible in the way that only Cerberus can on that map.
Yeah, that's pretty much what this artifact is meant to do. So, this is, let's put it in a niche category. And, you can invest on it if you want once you have taken care of your bastion rings and your obelisks. And then I will say, Arturo, for those watching, Arturos has very good notes on RD artifacts. And so for me, the next two that I'm going to mention, and I'm going to let him cover them because he might actually have good notes on these two. But for me, they're instant sells.
Yeah.
Regal's Crest and the Bloodlust Phylactery.
Yeah, this one, Bloodlust Phylactery, I hate it. Absolutely.
It doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, it's an instant sell for me when I need Metro.
Yeah, it's coming back to this offensive defender role, and we don't really have any units that fit that. As I say, you've got Toreador, you've got Orim, but again, they don't have the damage output to be fully effective in that category. And I have been known to put it on Orim in the past as a kind of a surprise. I'm doing more damage than you expect, but overall, yeah, it's not one that I use. And yeah, in most cases I wouldn't use it. Now, the other one, which is the healing one, I can't find it again. What was it called?
Regal's Crest. It's the purple one.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. So I've heard people suggest that this is designed for someone who might generate shields themselves, because it's basically increasing the unit's healing effect received. So you might be able to use this to generate stronger shields. I haven't put it to use, but someone said this coloration is very, very similar to Haas's stylings. So if you think that this is would boost Haas's skills, especially around his A5, which increases the shields that he's receiving and the healing that he's receiving. So I think there might be some synergy there. I have used it on Meriel, because obviously she is a healing defender. So again, it's just improving her survivability a bit more, because if you want her to do any healing, you need to load her up on defense. If in doing that, you're compromising her HP. So if I can load more defense into her, then I can load more healing into her and hopefully improve her survivability. So yeah, that's about it.
Somebody could experiment maybe with a 10 if they wanted to, but this is one of those that I would say don't throw your mithril on it, given all the artifacts that you have to take into consideration. So you may want to toy with one, sure, but yeah, I wouldn't invest all my mithril into one.
No, not at all. Unless you knew your defender was going to need that extra percentage of healing in order to keep them alive. But yeah, they're not ones that I'm really interested in doing. Even the one I've got on my Meriel, I think, is only 13, so it's not one that I'm building actively. So
okay, so let's move on to the healer one, just to move this along a little bit. There are two that I have that are legendary that I have that I did use at least for progression that I liked. One of them, at least when I was learning about the game, not many people liked it, but this one can come in handy at times, and that is the Tumultuous Horn. Yeah, just to get you that very big, very quick spike at the beginning.
Yeah, now this can be really, really effective. There was a strategy for Gear Raid 2 19+, which involved getting either a Sadie out or a Gwendolyn out with a maxed out Tumultuous Horn. So as soon as they came down, they were able to use their ultimates, because they start with about 50% rage, and you could get through that first screech from the boss, which meant that you were able to have that extra bit of survivability through the first two phases of the game. I have seen it used on Dolores, but it's because it's a one and done. effect, it's definitely not the most effective use of it. There are much better artifacts for her to be using because you want to be boosting her attack as much as possible, and that's not going to be it here. For Dolores, there is pretty much 2 artifacts you should really be considering, and neither of them are legendaries. So
yeah, exactly. And then the only other one, because when I read it, it kind of read like a little bit like a mini version of Tia's Balm is what it's called now. But the Chalice of Use is one that I used early on in my healers when I wanted to get a little bit more healing on my units when they're getting into trouble.
Yeah, so this is one of the newer artifacts that was brought in, and yeah, it's basically a baby version of a mythic artifact. It works perfectly well. It does the job, but it's going to be one that you have early game until you start getting your mythic artifacts and you start getting your mythic healing artifacts. But it's going to be one that you're going to want to move away from as soon as you get the opportunity. Likewise,
aside from that,
yeah,
I'm going to leave it up to you in terms of the legendary ones based on your notes. I know that you said that Dolores, you would rather use the mythic
wisdom.
ones.
Yeah. So
do you have anything on the honorific ban? I think that this was one of the new ones, but I think that I saw some CC saying you could throw this on Dolores early on if you want, but it's only during the ultimate that you get the increased attack.
Which is absolutely fine because Dolores is her ultimate. Let's be honest. Dolores is a buffer, not a healer. They just don't have a buffer class.
Yes.
So actually, this would work relatively well, except this attack speed element because she has no attack. Attack speed has no effect on Dolores. So
exactly.
I'd need to double check what my notes are, and I'll make a comment in the description what this scales to. But ultimately, it's probably going to give you a slightly bigger buff than Keen Wisdom because your base attack on this is higher, and therefore your total attack is going to be higher, so the multiplier doesn't need to be as big. So just for reference, Keen Wisdom, your base attack is 140 on this. The base attack on this is 335. So it's nearly triple. So it's going to scale up. It's going to scale up relatively well. I think it scales up to 1400 on the attack side. So you'll get something from scaling it. You'll get something from scaling it up to 25, and even if the multiplier only goes up to 15, then yeah, you're still going to be comparative to this, which goes up to 16% when it's fully maxed, but you've got a higher start point. So yeah, it probably works pretty well on Dolores.
So is that it for the legendaries?
I think so. Neophyte Folio is very similar to a mythic version. And yeah, I think that's it. Whatever you do, sell this. Just sell it. Don't even look at it. Just sell it. It's not worth investing anything in.
No. Yeah, exactly. All right. So when I started playing, the 2 artifacts that I rushed to try to level where one was Tia's Bomb, the other one was the Euphoric Orb, but then we got another one that just got recently introduced as one of the new ones, which actually gets a big boost too. So we can cover the Orb first and get your thoughts on it, and then we'll go to Tia's Bomb before going to the Scarab.
Yeah, so Tia's Balm goes to about 40%, 40 attack speed for 60 seconds. 40 attack speed for 30 seconds, and yeah, it's pretty good. It's the fact there's a bit of a downtime and it's not like triggered off something means it's difficult to sync up to when your team's ultimates are going off, especially if they're running autos. And it might not work with when the boss phases are, so it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. And so we're talking in the 0.1 range of attack speed. So It's going to increase your DPS slightly, but it's not going to change the world. But yeah, it can be useful in the right situation.
And then TS Bomb is more of now we're getting into, you're saving heroes that are getting really into trouble. You increase the healing multiplier, so it does two things at the same time.
Yeah, so this is really, really good, especially when heroes get below, it scales up to about 50% as the threshold, and increase the healing multiplier by, I think it's 40%. So it's good at pushing those heroes up. It's helping them stay alive when the damage is coming in hard, especially multi-target healers. They're able to keep a large group of people alive very effectively, and it doesn't matter too much that generally the healing capacity of multi-target healers is slightly lower. This is really good at saying, actually, that's not an issue, because when that person gets I'll just give them more healing. So yeah, it works quite well.
Right, and then the newer one, which actually, you just said it would work really, very, really good in Dolores, is the one, Golden Scarab, because not only does it give it attack boost, but the rage region is also boosted.
Absolutely. I mean, again, comparing this back to Keen Wisdom, the base attack on that was 140. The base attack here is 777. I think it's around A3, A4 Awakening that it will surpass a maxed out Keen Wisdom. But even so, it's really worth investing in. The attack increase is good. The rage regen scales up to about 50%. And yeah, it just makes a hell of a difference to units that have that can cycle their ultimates faster. So more rage equals more ultimates. So in Dolores' case, that's more inspiration to the team. On Hollow, that's more rage to the entire team, which is fantastic, because then you're getting those ultimates out even faster, and yeah, everyone's then able to do their jobs more effectively.
Yeah, I try to use this one as much as I can in Samra. I do play one healer usually has an orb, the other one has the scarab, especially if it's the healer, because I want that rage region to come back a little bit quicker. So, I mean, this one just outscale all the other healer ones that we had in the game, and it just made some of the end game content a little bit more tolerable when you do manage to get your hands on one that is maxed out.
Yeah, and once you've got one, you can find places to use it. So I've used it on Lily in GVG so that she's able to cycle her ultimate faster. Again, the more she cycles her ultimate, the more chance she has of casting her bubbles. Her bubbles that save people, can increase her attack. So yeah, it's definitely one that's got a lot of utility. And if you sit down and think, how can I make this work on this particular unit, you'll find a use for more rage and more attack in most cases.
Okay, so then another one that I like to use in sometimes on healers that provide shields, Gwendolyn Vortex is the example here, is Elysian's Epitaph, because it increases the healing effect by the percent, and sometimes the strength of the shield for these units that I mentioned is depending on healing effect.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and any area who's got a wide healing range and can easily pick up 4 units, because obviously single target healers have got quite a narrow range, and you might not get 4 units in it, so you're not going to necessarily get the full effect of this. A wide area healer or Eloin, who's generally people are quite close to, can make good use of this. But yeah, a wide area healer who can easily get 4 units in, definitely worth investing in, because yeah, you can get full stacks of this for full rewards.
All right, and then the other one that I have on the list, and it's on my instant sell list, unless you have some good things to say about it here, Arcturus, The Bright Root Ring.
Yeah, I mean, early game, it's okay. But as soon as the bosses are putting out all target damage, then it drops off or almost instantly, because you've got to maintain full health, and when there's constant stacks of damage coming out. So, for example, Semra, the poison phase, it's useless. And in that, you need as much healing effect as possible, because those poison stacks weaken your healing effect. So this is just a double effect here, because then you can't heal as effectively because you're poisoned, and you can't heal as effectively because you're not at full health. So yeah, it's really not a very good one. Tyre's Balm outshines it by a long way.
Yeah, and I know that I say it in jest, but if you are progressing to the game and you just this one is your first one, and you want to use it for the extra stats, use it. You just have to make sure that you're using it in a situation where your healer is not going to take any damage, and then that becomes effective for you. But if you're going to go into guild boss or anything like that, like Arturos was saying, is you may want to go with the legendary ones that you might have, where you're getting a little bit of an extra healing effect. I wouldn't rely on this. And so as you progress your account, you'll eventually come to a point where you may actually say, I need mithril. I'm going to sell it so I can get some mithril.
Absolutely. I mean, you will eventually get to a point where you do have quite a bit of mithril. So, for example, he says, yeah, I've got 3,000 at the moment. So late game, you do end up having stacks of mithril that you will get round to using at some point. But most of the time, you're just waiting on the right artifacts to turn up. So I've run out of Bastion rings at the moment, and I can't upgrade any more Bastion rings. So yeah, it's things like that. You end up getting limited by what you've drawn.
Yeah, exactly. So let's close it out with the Marksman. Let's go through the legendaries. The only one in the list that I have that I would recommend for anybody, if you get them, is let's start. I'm going to wait for Arturos to catch up to the list here. But for me, it's Hydrol's Gaze. And it's even an artifact that you can use end game. So if you can eventually level 2, I would have 2 in your account. But if you can just at least get 1 fully level, this is one to have.
Yeah, I use this on my Hatzer in most situations because it's so effective. I mean, this is a unit who has defense down anyway, and this is saying, actually, as well as that, I'm going to ignore up to 40% of the target's defense.
40%. That's big.
And when you have a unit with high attack speed, especially maybe a unit who fires twice, then you've got double the chance of doing that. And it's just things like that which make it so effective on those fast firing units. And yeah, it's just devastating on her because she put out so much damage and just ignore defenses and just chew people to shreds.
Yeah, and there's nothing more to say about that one. It comes in so handy. I know there's a chance to proc it, but if you are lucky enough to get it procced in the right situation, you might be able to clear some type of content that you've been struggling to clear for a while. Then all the other legendaries that I have here are pretty much, they're conditional. So this is not, you can use them early on if you want. I just would not invest mithril into them. So I don't know if you have any ones in your list that you can say, yeah, I would probably throw some mithril on this.
I'd say if you were really looking, if you're early game and you're looking for something to help you push Gear Raid 3, Watchguard's Disguise, absolutely perfect. You're only dealing with airborne units, and it means that you've got no... Sorry, you're only dealing with airborne units, and it just means that you've got more damage going out to them, and it just help give you that edge, taking them down and pushing it to the next level. It might just help you push 1 or 2 more levels, might help you get a bit more gear, which means that you can then push up another stage of artifact material rage, maybe getting towards those 18s. And yeah, it's helpful, but it's not something that I'd take really far unless you really wanted to.
All right. So let's go to now the mythics, because there are some interesting ones here that we can that have their specific uses. And so let's start with the more popular one, because this is the one that we take into boss battles more often. And that one is the Spirit Siphon.
Yeah, Spirit Siphon is absolutely fantastic for you just hitting the same unit again and again and again, because you can end up hitting 30% extra damage on a target when it's fully maxed out. So it's just really effective way of bringing more damage in from the Marksmen, especially lots of Marksmen under Starpiercer leads have really good synergy and can boost their damage that way. So this just adds extra damage coming in, really effective. It's a great artifact. It's one of the best artifacts for Marksman that's available.
Yeah, and for this one, it's like if you're a whale or you're somebody that really farms a lot of AMR, you could easily go 3 of them and have them in your account at any time. In the Immortal Codex, if you rely a lot in Marksman for something like the sticks, then yeah, if you want to do a lot of damage, this is the artifact that you want to use for that. So that's essentially what that one is primarily used for. That one is one that I would say, yes, invest your mithril on. The other one that we use for AoE damage dealers primarily, at least I do, is the Sharpshooter Crest. So I do have a couple of those in my account that are level, because especially if you have somebody like Nyx or Rasak and you don't have their exclusives, this is one you want to rely on.
Yeah, this is pretty good one. It does run into the problem of having the range limitation on it, and in the Immortal Codex, the flying fish can get quite close to you, or in Arena, the rats can get quite close to you, and then it stops its effectiveness. Now, that doesn't mean you should discount it outright, because you're still able to put out up to, again, about 30-40% extra damage, but based on that additional range that you're getting from them. So it's worthwhile building it. It's worthwhile having 1 or 2 in your account fully maxed out for your AoE targets, your AoE units, exactly as Sebastian said. So yeah, definitely worth investing in. Not as good as Sharpshooters because of the conditionals associated with it, but yeah, really good artifact.
Yeah, so like somebody like Maul, if you know that you're going to be able to keep the units away, this is something I like to use on him as well. Unless you just want to gamble and get the extra defense decrease or defense, then you go Hydro's case. But it doesn't hurt having 1 or 2 laying around, especially if you do farm a lot of AMR. Now, the other one that I like to use on a marksman that I know is going to be killing a lot of units, example Hatsuit, sometimes I like, especially if I don't have her exclusive, Reaper's Emblem, because she'll do more damage after killing a lot of units. Yeah,
this one isn't as popular with the community, I've noticed, but it definitely has its situations where it's very effective, especially its ability to stack it up, and especially if you know there's going to be lots of low armored units where you can kill lots of units very quickly and keep those stacks keeping the 2 stacks up for the full 10 seconds. But yeah, it scales quite nicely. It's an extra 15% base damage, and it scales up to an extra basically 15% damage on top. So yeah, it's pretty good artifact.
Then the other artifact that we have here on the list is the one that gives us a little bit more critical damage. Of course, it sacrifices HP. But this is for a hero where you are needing the critical damage. That's where we use it on, and that's the Bloodbone Signet. So if you are lucky enough to get Silas early on, and this is one of the first artifacts, yeah, you can try to boost his critical damage if you want by using this, but just make sure that you're not in a situation where Silas is getting damaged.
Yeah, exactly. Interestingly, I found that Razak's artifact seems to be based off this one, which I thought was slightly unusual.
It's a little hybrid. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's obviously what they deem to be the sort of the base artifact for him. So it's, if you do have Razak, it's one to consider for him. Obviously, he's got his true damage fish, which make him quite effective overall. But Yeah, it's definitely got its place. I have used it on Nyx in Arena just for that extra critical damage, especially if I know that she's not going to be picking up any damage. So worth having one. Worth having one built.
Yeah, this is like a situational one, right? So you're just looking for that extra boosters. Just you can get the attack, but you can't get the critical damage. Just like that type of situation, especially if you're lacking on the other ones that we covered early when it comes to the marksman. And the last one that kind of found a little bit of life, especially with Gear Dungeon 2, and that is the chalice, the Ichor chalice.
Yeah,
the one that gives you health when you're dealing damage.
Sorry, I have to swap forges for this because it's counted as an exclusive because it's a limited run. So yeah, the Ichor Chalice. I have one of these built. I've used it in Void Rifts on my Setram just to in the stages with Calypso, just because there's a bit of incoming damage and I can't always get the healer out to him. So having him being able to self-heal is really good. I've used it in Titanic Ruins. I've used it where I've not necessarily been able to get my healer to cover my marksman, but I can get them to be within the range of the cleanser. So I don't. They can heal themselves and keep themselves at max health, and then Dasomi can just cleanse them as and when the poison comes in, because they're already at full health. So his essence just instantly cleanses the debuff and they get on with their day, keeping their health full, putting out 15% bonus damage on the target. So it's definitely got its place, and yeah, it's quite effective. It's not hugely popular, but yeah, it's got its role to do what it does.
And that's it. We pretty much gone through the gauntlet of the non-exclusive artifacts. The one thing that I would emphasize, if you listen to it, is we did not want to particularly make a tier list per se, because each one has specific uses or niche uses, or you could find yourself using it to clear a specific content. So we just kind of wanted to emphasize where particular we would use it. But the way that I would describe is as to how we feel about an artifact is, where would we invest our metro if we got our hands on it? Which artifact would we go after? So that's kind of the general idea that we wanted to give you when we were covering the artifacts. So we're not primarily saying some of them, well, we did say some of them are bad, especially in the legendary category, but it was just, if you get them, this is where you primarily may want to go and put your metro in, because that is one of the hardest things to get in the game in terms of economy. A currency that you need to level things up. So any final thoughts on the artifacts that we covered today?
No, other than that, I'm really glad that the devs are continuing to add new artifacts and keeping the game fresh. Obviously, it's also good that they're adding to the general pool rather than just keeping them as exclusives. So it shows that they're interested in helping the players develop. And because artifacts add a different twist, you can get two units who might be geared the same but have different artifacts, and you'll get different outcomes. So it makes Arena a bit fresh as well. So yeah, I like the artifacts. I think that there's a good variety of them. I just wish it'd be easy to get hold of mythics, the exclusives, but they'll come in time. So I can live with that.
Yeah, exactly. You have to grind it out, just like any other gacha game, especially to get. But if the developers are watching this, we're always looking forward to see if there are any other non-exclusives that we can use, because definitely a lot of the ones that were recently released, there were big hits in the community, and people are using them and investing their metro on. So Absolutely. With that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you all very much for tuning in and watching. Please do remember to hit like and subscribe as you head out, and we will see you all in the next Wars Going On episode.
Bye-bye.